Section 1. The Hope Trap. You've been living by a contract you never agreed to. Day means safety. Night means death. Sunrise resets the board. The monsters go back underground and you get 12 hours to breathe, to plan, to believe you might actually get out of this place. That contract is the most dangerous thing in Fromville. Not the monsters, not the men in yellow, not the tunnels or the symbols or the voices on the radio. The belief that the day is yours. That is what keeps the system running. Look at what the town provides during daylight hours. The food in the diner never runs out, yet nothing is ever delivered. The electricity flows through wires that lead nowhere. The crops grew until they didn't. The town gave the survivors just enough to sustain hope, enough to keep Boyd strategizing, Jim building, Tian-Chen cooking, just enough to ensure that when the night arrived, there was still something left to terrify. This is the Hope Trap. In any system designed to harvest fear, total darkness produces catatonia. The mind shuts down. The body stops reacting. You cannot extract anything meaningful from a person who stopped caring whether they live. So, the system manufactures hope during the day, carefully, precisely, just enough, to keep the cortisol pumping when the sun goes down. Today is not a reprieve, it's a preparation. The town is feeding you hope the way a farmer feeds livestock before a harvest. And here's where the forensic evidence gets uncomfortable. Because if you accept that the day is a tool of the system, then the sunrise is not the town releasing its grip, it's the town reloading. The question is what the town is doing with you while they're gone. And the answer has been visible since the moment the Matthews family arrived. Something is happening to the light in Fromville. Not the weather, not the season, but the quality of the daylight itself is changing. In the early days, the light was long and golden, warm enough to make the town feel like somewhere you could survive. By season 3, that same light has become gray, sickly, compressed. The Hope Trap is shrinking. The town is speeding up its cycle. And what that means for season 4 is something the architecture has been pointing towards since the beginning. But first, we need to look at what the monsters actually are, because once you understand that, the entire architecture of the nightmare becomes visible. Section 2. What the autopsy proved. Season 2 gave us the most important lore moment in the entire series, and most people processed it as horror and moved on. When Christy, Kenny, and Boyd opened up the creature they killed, the one the community calls Smiley, they did not find a predator. They found a husk, dried out, hollowed, no blood, no digestive tract, no biology that corresponds to anything that hunts for sustenance. What they found was a doll. Something animated from the outside. Not alive in the way an animal is alive, but active in the way a tool is active when someone's using it. The monsters do not eat the survivors. They never have, which means every night of terror, every chase, every whispered threat through a window, none of it was about killing. It was about the anticipation of killing. Think about what that means for 3 seasons of nighttime sequences. The monsters walk slowly, they smile, they speak, they don't rush. Because the night is not about the kill. It's about the 10 hours of high cortisol arousal that precedes it. That is what the town is harvesting. Not bodies, not blood. The biochemical output of sustained, concentrated human fear. The talismans work because they represent a boundary of intent, not a physical barrier, an emotional one. The monsters cannot enter a home where the will to be safe remains uncompromised, which is why they target children. Children ask questions. Children open doors. Children are the weakest point in the boundary, not because they're small, but because they're curious. The autopsy didn't just tell us what the monsters are, it told us what the town is. It's a fear engine, a machine with moving parts, creatures, cycles, hope, dread, all calibrated to extract the maximum output from the people inside it. And in season 3, that machine began to accelerate. If this is changing how you see the town, subscribe now, because the moment season 4 drops, this channel becomes a real-time forensic map of everything the system is doing to the people still inside it. What we've covered so far is the mechanism. What comes next is the evidence that the machine is running out of time, and when it does, the rules change for everyone. Section 3. The Reductive Season. Something is happening to the light in Fromville, and it's been happening since Season 1. The early days were long and open, the kind of light that makes a place feel survivable. By Season 3, that light is gone. The days are gray, compressed, increasingly indistinguishable from the atmosphere of the nights. The weather is changing, and the town is closing the hope trap. The distance between day and night is shrinking because the system no longer needs to offer as much hope as it once did. It has enough of what it came for. The physical evidence follows the same trajectory. The crops died, the soil turned to ash, the trees began moving closer. In the real world, autumn is a season of harvest. In Fromville, the harvest is the people inside it, and the environment stripping away their ability to sustain themselves during the day is the system forcing them into the night earlier and earlier. They have to scavenge, they have to take risks, they have to enter the tunnels. The tunnels are where the day-night architecture becomes impossible to ignore. During the day, the monsters are static, catatonic, almost like statues sitting in the underground passageways in a dormant state. This is the only time the day logic and the night logic exist in the same physical space. And what Victor's mother Miranda did, what Tabitha and Victor eventually followed, was bring that night logic back up to the surface with them. The objects in the tunnels are the town's forensic record. Suitcases, clothing, toys, not destroyed, not decayed, archived. Every group that came before left something behind. The town does not erase its history. It stores it underground, in the dark, where they cannot reach it. This is why the Ankui children can appear in daylight. They're not bound by the day-night contract because they're not survivors. They're bleed-through. Echoes from the town's core pushing up through whatever gap the system briefly allows. When they appear in the light, the architecture is cracking. The boundary between the hope layer and the fear layer is thinning. In Season 3 ended with that boundary thinner than it ever has been. Section 4. The wires lead nowhere. The electricity in Fromville is the clearest evidence that this place does not run on physics. The wires lead nowhere. There's no power source, and yet the lights stay on, the jukebox plays, the radios crackle with interference. The town generates electricity the same way it generates hope, as a tool of the system, switched on when needed, calibrated to maintain the illusion of normalcy. Jim understood this before anyone else. His radio tower was not just an engineering project. It was an attempt to find the seam between what the town allows and what lies beyond it. And the voice that came back through the static knew his name, knew what Tabitha was doing, responded not with help, but with surveillance. The radio didn't punch through the system, it confirmed the system was listening. The voice reached Jim during a storm, when the daylight was obscured, when the hope layer was temporarily suppressed. This is consistent with everything the architecture suggests. The entities running this place have cleaner communication when the sun is gone or blocked. The day is not just a tool for the survivors, it's a filter for the system itself. Whatever operates beneath the surface of Fromville runs more clearly in darkness. Jim's death was not random violence, it was a fixed point. The town removes the protector archetype, the person applying external logic to the system, because external logic is the only thing that threatens the architecture. Boyd survives because he stops trying to understand and starts trying to endure. Jim died because he never stopped trying to understand. The town does not punish weakness. It removes clarity. What remains after Jim is a family operating entirely on intuition. Tabitha's visions, Julie's time-slipping, Ethan's guiding. Night logic skills. The town did not break the Matthews family. It converted them. Section 5. The Long Night. Everything the architecture has built toward points to one event. The town has a cycle. The day shrinks, the harvest accelerates, and the hope layer thins until it can no longer sustain the fear it was designed to generate. And when that happens, the system resets. Victor survived a reset in 1964. and he's been living in the aftermath of one ever since, cataloging cars, preserving drawings, maintaining the town's only honest record of its own history. The vehicles in his graveyard are not junk, they're timestamps. Each cluster represents a pulse of arrivals separated by long gaps, the sediment layers of every cycle this machine has completed. And the gaps between them tell you how long the cycle runs before the town decides it's finished. Season 4 is arriving at the end of a cycle. The soil is dead, the light has almost gone, the architecture is visible in a way it has never been before, which means the system is either failing or preparing to do something it's not done in a very long time. The vacancy sign is flickering because the current batch is almost spent. Jim is gone, Boyd is breaking. The survivors who remain are operating on night logic, which means the town has nearly finished converting them from residents into raw material. The only variable the system is not accounted for is Julie, not because she's special, but because she's seen the architecture from the outside. She's been inside the cycle and beyond it. She knows what the day is for, and a survivor who understands the hope trap cannot be fed by it. This is the one thing the machine was never designed to process. Now I want to know what you think. If the day was always the trap, what does that mean for anyone who's still trying to escape during daylight? Leave your theory below.